Welcome back everyone, this is MandoAllday, back with another video, and in this video, I'll be doing an overview of Captain America the Omnibus by Rick Remender. I'll be talking about a little bit of the story, the art, and of course, if it's worth your purchase or not. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button to our support channel, but to keep up to date and watch videos like this. So let's take a look in front of the dust jacket, the spine, the back. I'll show you a full spread image of the dust jacket, if I can, there you go. Now this is a variant cover. I'll have an image of the other, I think they call it direct market cover, but this is a variant cover, so there you go, I'm just showing you that. Alright. Take a look in front of the book. The spine. The back. And I'll show a full spread image of the art, which I really like. Alright. Now let's take a look at what's inside. So what is this book about? So this book collects several stories. There's going to be one story in particular that takes up quite a bit of the whole omnibus, but to let you know, they does have several stories, and they all connect at one point. And I won't say too much because I'll spoil. Again, this is just an overview. So let's just dive right into it. So the first story is going to be about Captain America is chasing her after Arnim Zola, I think that's how you pronounce it. If I pronounce the names incorrectly, my fault. I apologize for that. I'm more of a DC reader, and I do read Marvel from time to time, so that's that. But anyway, so it starts off with Captain America's after Arnim Zola, and unfortunately ends up being trapped, and he's in a role called Dimension Z. And so he is in this particular world, and Arnim Zola is trying to conquer this world by doing something which I don't want to say too much because it'll spoil it. But in this particular world, Steve Rogers finds out he has a kid named Ian, and that is like the main gist of the first story. There's obviously more to it. I don't want to say too much, but that is going to be like the first big chunk of it. It's going to be Captain America in this particular world called Dimension Z. And this story itself, it is really weird because every time I hear about Marvel, a lot of people say that Marvel is very relatable because it uses regular cities like New York, Los Angeles, and so forth. So going into it, I had the assumption it was going to be about Captain America in New York or something like that. But no, it's a good chunk of it. The first chunk, I should say, is going to be of Captain America in this Dimension Z world, or this alternate world, whatever you want to call it. And I like this story. It's really long, and he's in this planet or world for a long time. And what I like about it, it shows his perseverance. And how can I say this? I like it, but I don't. I'm not say don't like it, but I bit of a negative to it. What I like about it, again, it shows perseverance. He's very persistent. He's always pushing himself. And I say fucked up lightly because he's getting fucked up, beat to death. I mean, he's getting brutalized, and he's always persistent. He's always pushing himself, keep going, and he has a lot of inner thought. And this whole book, I'll say this right now, this whole book has a lot of inner dialogues, a lot of thought process, so you kind of really understand and see how the heroes think and how they see things. And I actually like that, but also a bit of a downside, my negative to it, is that it can get really repetitive. I get the premise, how it shows Steve Rogers being persistent. He's always pushing himself. No matter what situation, he's always persistent. Similar to Batman, where he's always persistent. He doesn't kill, he doesn't use guns. But if you keep repeating yourself multiple times, let's say, for instance, Batman says, "No, I don't kill, I don't use guns," and you say it multiple times, at one point, it's just going to get really annoying and repetitive. And that's what issue I have with this whole inner dialogue in the first story, is a lot of Captain America telling himself, "You gotta keep pushing yourself. Do it for your son," and he keeps doing it again and again and again and again. And it's not bad or anything. It just repeats itself multiple times where I'm like, okay, I understand the point. I get it. You're beating it one too many times. So that's more negative regret about it in terms of the Dimension Z story arc per se. Now the story progresses. Captain America returns to our universe or world, however you want to call it. And I don't want to say too much, I'll spoil it, but ends up finding out that the new Captain America, which is Sam Wilson, will take the mantle, and he has a sidekick called Nomad, which is Ian. And while this is going on, it reveals who's actually the main villain per se, who's kind of making all these plans, and they're executing certain things. Again, I don't want to say too much. And that is like the big chunk of this whole omnibus. It's going to be the Dimension Z storyline, and also Captain America coming back and facing this other villain who has this greater plan. And I gotta say, this first story, again, it's really long. It's about, like, I think, like 30 issues. So it's really long. But for the most part, though, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. There are some moments in the Dimension Z storyline where I'm kind of like, I'm not really feeling it. It's not bad or anything, but just kind of okay. But it gets better though at one point. Some parts it kind of slowed down a little bit. But regardless, so I enjoyed it for what it is though. It really shows Captain America, like I said, being persistent, pushing himself, and throughout this whole book, both in Captain America's or Sam Wilson and also Steve Rogers' like stories, it does show glimpses of the past, how they grew up, and I actually like that because it really shows how, well, for one, Steve Rogers had a really terrible childhood where one, his father was abusive, mother was very kind, and of course Steve Rogers gets bullied because of his size. And I actually like that. Similar to the MCU, just this is a comic book, so you get really tough stuff. But nonetheless, so I enjoyed it for what it is. Now, when Steve Rogers comes back to our world and you see that main villain, the question I asked myself, why does this villain hate S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because this person really hates S.H.I.E.L.D. and they really emphasize it or not. Like, this person hates S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't want to say who it is because I'll give it away or spoil it, but they really emphasize on this particular villain hates S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot. And coincidentally, when I thought about that, there's a story, which is the next story. It's going to be called Bitter March. I believe that's what it's called. And basically, it's a Winter Soldier story, but it also gives a background to this villain. I won't say too much because I'll give it away, but in short, it gives a background of this villain and their motive, and more importantly, why they hate S.H.I.E.L.D. And I actually like that because it gives a good understanding of this villain and their motivation. It makes more sense and it connects the dots per se. And I actually like this story. I think the story itself is good. It's short. After you read the whole Dimension Z storyline, every other story is really short, so I won't say too much about it because I'll spoil it. But nonetheless, so the Winter Soldier story, it's short but sweet, but it gives a lot of information in terms of the background of this villain and why they're doing what they're doing, and it makes sense. Like, and I kind of understand in a way, agree, but also not agree because of some stuff that he does. But nonetheless, so that's going to be the story after the Dimension Z storyline. The next story after that is going to be of Fear. I think it's called Fear Him or Fear Toxin, and it's Marvel's Scarecrow. I say Marvel's because it's a villain called Scarecrow, and guess what? He has crows, and he has these gases that make you hallucinate. Sound familiar? Yes, it is going to be essentially Marvel's Scarecrow, or the version of Scarecrow. And this story, it's fine. It's mainly Sam Wilson and Nomad. They're doing something. I don't want to say too much, so give it away. But they're on a mission, and they're finding out that there is like a hidden, in the tunnels underground, there's like a group of children per se, and it involves Scarecrow. I don't want to say too much. I'll give it away. And that story, it's fine. It's good. It's fine. It's nothing special about it. The next story after that, it's going to be called, what is it called? I can't remember off the top of my head. But mainly it's going to be on about Sam and Nomad. They're on a mission to find a hidden location for Hydra. And while they're there, they find a location, but also they find out that Hydra has a weapon called the Infinite Elevator. And also, what's his name? What's his name? Zemo, there you go. Zemo is behind all this. And this story, it's good too. I really like the story. I can't say too much because I'll spoil it, but it's a really short story, like 4 issues, I believe, or 5. So it's a short story, but I like it because it really shows more villains. Because at one point I'm like, okay, who's like the... you gotta give me something. Like, you can show me cool character development of a hero, but you gotta give me a villain that's gonna compete with that. And this particular story, man, Zemo he's an asshole. Because the stuff that he does is like, dude, this guy is brutal. And I'm digging it because it really is ruthless. I don't want to say too much, that'll spoil it, but he is ruthless, and I am digging it 100%. You do get other cameos from other villains from Marvel. I know one of them is called Crossbones. He was in the MCU. He appeared like briefly. He's in it as well too in that particular story. But overall, that story itself, it's good. I enjoyed it, and I think Zemo is a highlight of that story. He's badass, and he's a person you do not want to mess with. The last story is going to be called Hell Hydra, and that one's a short story where Nomad, or Ian Rogers, or Steve Rogers' son, he is in a world that's complete opposite, where Hydra is like in charge of the world and so forth. It's a short story, like 4 issues. I don't want to say too much; it will spoil it. And again, good story nonetheless. And I don't know if you guys seen the pattern, but this whole omnibus itself, it's just good overall, which is a good thing because it shows you the quality, but is also a bad thing. Let me explain. It shows you the good thing because, one, like I said, it shows you the quality. It's good writing, good storytelling. The problem, though, or kind of a negative, is it never excels that. It's just good. Like, if you were to ask me, Mondo, what's your best story that you kind of wowed you? What story made you go, holy shit? Honestly, there's none. There was not even a moment on here where I'm like, holy shit. There were some cool moments here and there. There's really good art here and there, but there was never a moment where I, stopped reading. I'm like, wow, this is ridiculous. Wow, this is amazing. It's just good overall. Sure, there are some parts and there's some stories where maybe not that strong. Scarecrow, for instance, with some of Dimension Z. But for the most part, though, this book, it's good. Like, I can't really hate on it. It's a really good book, but just go into it with a certain expectations. I think you have a good time. If you're a Captain America fan, you're probably going to love it. Me, as a more of a DC reader, I went into it not knowing any knowledge. So if you're wondering, do you have prior knowledge? No, you don't. You can just get this book, just like I did, and start reading it, and you'll be perfectly fine. And again, you don't need to have prior knowledge. The pacing of it is between average to above average. Obviously, when there's action scenes going on, above average. But for the most part, it's about average. It does pick up here and there. I know the one for the Winter Soldier one, probably the pacing's a little bit slower, but it's nothing too bad or anything. It's just probably one of the slowest one out of everyone. In terms of the art, it's good. Some of it looks kind of cartoony. It's not bad or anything. It just kind of, it looks cartoony, which I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I think it's cool, and I enjoyed it for what it is. The paper quality, this is an omnibus. It's going to have the nice glossy paper, and I think with this particular art and having that glossy paper, it's fine. It makes the colors pop, but there's really not much art that made me go, holy shit. It's just cool. There's some cool moments here and there. And there's some really moments that really show Captain America being a badass. So that's that. But overall, though, what do I think about this omnibus? I liked it. I enjoyed it for what it is. Again, I'm more of a DC reader than Marvel. So going into it with, like I said, no prior knowledge, perfectly fine with it. I think Rick Remender did a really good job with establishing, building Captain America, Steve Rogers. And I actually liked that. I really appreciate more Captain America after reading this. But again, the only issue is that Dimension C, like I said, it just gets repetitive in terms of the inner dialogue. But apart from that, I enjoyed it. I think it's a good story, good read. It's fun. Some cool moments here and there. But for the most part, I had a good time with it, man. Like I said, if you go into a certain expectation, I think you're going to have a really, really good time. For me, I had no expectation. I really enjoyed it. But again, there was no moment on here or story that made me go, holy shit. That's that. So overall, though, what do I give Captain America Omnibus by Rick Remender? I give it easily thumbs up. Highly recommend it. And coming from a guy who mainly reads DC, hey man, there you go. That tells you something. So thumbs up for me. Let me know what you guys think. Have you read this book? Do you plan on reading this book? Leave it in the comment section below. As always, make sure you hit the subscribe button to my support channel to keep up to date and watch videos like this. That includes an overview of Captain America Omnibus by Rick Remender. And on to the next one.